Okay, we're back for Fire Safety Part 2. So excited to have Mike and John from the city, Hendersonville. And we're going to get started with our presentation. I'll give you guys, let's see if I can present. Here we go. All right, we'll turn it over to you all.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We appreciate you guys jumping back in with us. We know it was a lot the last go round, and we appreciate everybody being excited, taking those tools. And I've heard a lot of good stories with people implementing those ideas, developing those plans, practicing. Super stoked and proud and appreciative of everyone for doing that. Obviously I'm Mike, this is John. So we're going to kind of dig into it, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay. All right, so just to recap, the last session we talked about Edith, which was our exit drill in the home. So just we covered having an escape plan, having 2 ways out, and we discussed some other aspects as far as once you get out to stay out. But we're going to dive right into where we left off. And one of the things when we're trying to get your family member out of the house, one technique that has shown to be helpful is wrapping the individual in some type of blanket. And what it is this will help assist the individual out without harming themselves or others. It's an excitable time. There's a lot going on. There's smoke, there's heat, there's fire. There's a lot of senses that your family member might have trouble processing. So usually the blanket just kind of helps secure their arms and keeps whoever's helping with that rescue from getting swatted in the face or whatnot. And it also, you have better control of that individual. Plus the blanket can be used especially if the fire occurs during the cold months. It's just some security.
So ultimately, each of you are, your loved ones, yourself, what is a stimulant, what is a calming for them, and whatever that aspect is, we want you to work on developing that toolbox that you need and integrating that into your fire plan. So there tends to be that extra burden of not just getting out, staying low, that a lot of the public has to deal with, but you tend to have special situations where you've got to deal with that excitability, or people that are going to run out the door, people that are going to run back inside. So take those tools and use that as part of your development.
All right, so we're moving along into fire alerting systems. And what this covers is what you would commonly know as smoke detectors or smoke alarms. All right, there's several different options to choose from, and you can pick the one that suits the needs of your home. There's different types. There's single and combination smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. So those are integrated for smoke detection and carbon monoxide detection. There's the different inner workings of each alarm are different. Some are ionization, photoelectric. And what that is it's just how the device itself picks up the detection of either heat or smoke. But there's other alerting options out there, and you also have the option of choosing a detector that can be hardwired into your electrical system in your home, or a battery powered one. So the ionization smoke alarm, it detects small little particles that are present in smoke, because basically what smoke is unburned particles. So inside this particular alarm, there's two little plates, and what the plates do is they have a little sensor that more or less, when something passes through those two plates, it will trigger off an alarm. Now this type of alarm is the one that usually goes off in the shower. You ever have a detector that goes off after taking a really steamy shower? You open up the door, goes out into the hallway, sets the alarm off. That's usually one of them that will trigger that. But this particular detector is known to work better with aggressive and open flame fires. The photoelectric smoke alarm or detector uses a light source. So there's a beam, and anything, any particle that passes through that beam will trigger the detector. These are usually during the progression of a fire. So these are more apt to pick up at the beginning stages. But no matter which detector you pick, either one will do its intended purpose, which is alerting you to exit your home safely. Now, another thing that we hit hard on is carbon monoxide. It's odorless, colorless. You can't see it, smell it. And we call it the silent killer for a reason. Usually any appliance that you have that is fuel burning, something that takes LP gas or natural gas piped into your home, it's just a very good idea to have a carbon monoxide detector in your home. Alarms need to be installed on every level of the home, especially in the sleeping areas, and always go by the manufacturer's recommendations for mounting these devices in your home. We usually recommend that you place these alarms at least 15 feet away from the fuel burning appliance.
I'm going to jump in for just a sec. On the slide, you'll also notice that it talks about an attached garage. Obviously, what we're looking at is from vehicle emissions. So if you have a vehicle that parks in your garage, then you certainly should have a CO detector in there. If you're using your garage for storage, just because you have an attached garage doesn't dictate that you need a CO detector in there. If you're putting a vehicle inside there, that's kind of the trigger for it. If you think you might put one in there, I would certainly stick it in there. But like John said, any gas fired appliance, you definitely should have these in there for sure.
Now this little depiction here shows the different types of carbon monoxide emitting areas, whether it's from the stove in your kitchen or the car like we talked about in the garage, or even gas and wood burning fireplaces. So these are the areas of the home where you would most likely have this. In the basement, some appliances, hot water heaters, or some dryers run off of natural gas. So just if you're unsure if you have a gas appliance or not, I mean, at any time, feel free to call us, and we can guide you in the direction of finding out and make those recommendations. So when it comes to the detector, there's power supply preferences. There's battery powered detectors, and then there's hardwired detectors. And what that means is the battery powered ones are the detectors that are powered by just common 9-volt batteries. Some detectors, these detectors don't use a whole lot of power, but the battery life has a limit. And so what we promote is changing batteries when the time zones change, when we have the daylight savings time. So change your clock, change your batteries.
So everybody should have brand new batteries inside their smoke detectors from last weekend.
reminders are promoted, like I said, for daylight saving times, but even if you get a brand new battery, it might not be the 6-month mark. Still, just if it's easier for you to remember, then go with the daylight savings promotion. Or if you can remember to change your batteries every 6 months, that's what we recommend. With the hardwired detectors, I'm sorry. With the hardwired detectors, it's just as what it says, it's hardwired into your home. So there's a constant source of electricity. But even though there's a constant source of electricity, most of those smoke detectors come with a battery as well. So in case the power goes out, there's still a power source to keep that detector in use. Usually an electrician is if you don't have the hookup, you just need to get an electrician to assist with installing a hardwired smoke detector in your home. And then we were talking about the combination devices. There's a few combination devices that can detect carbon monoxide, smoldering fires, and flaming fires. We recommend that consumers use a combination of detectors in their homes for complete protection, but it's completely up to you on what you want to use and what will suit the needs of your home. Like I said, a lot of detectors offer standalone interconnected varieties, but just shop around, see what works for you, and you can't go wrong with whatever you choose. Some of the devices can offer a Wi-Fi feature to where if the smoke alarm goes off in your home, it can alert your cell phone. I myself have one of these in my house, and it's just a really simple device that plugs into the wall, and I set it up through my computer, and when it hears any brand smoke detector, when it hears the smoke detector tone, it'll send an alert to my phone saying, hey, just to let you know, one of your detectors in your home is going off. So if there's no one at home, I can make a call and say, hey, to a neighbor and say, hey, my smoke detector is going off in my home. Can you look outside and see what's going on? But there are other higher end detectors that I believe can also alert through an alarm company as well.
So a lot of your services, if you think of like Ring, Alexa, a lot of those can actually tie into these. If you get into the world of wireless smoke detectors, you will go down a rabbit hole of smoke detectors, which isn't a bad thing, but there is a ton of options. Interconnectivity, they have ones that if you don't want to hardwire your house, you can do Bluetooth connections. So that when the one in your basement goes off, it is talking to the one in the upstairs. So you have that extra time. Interconnectivity is super, super key. If you can't afford to do that, that's fine. But just understand those restrictions. If you just have the battery hookups and they're kind of through there, you're relying on the travel of smoke as opposed to the travel of electricity to let you know that there's an issue. So by the time that smoke detector outside your bedroom on the second floor is going off, smoke had to get in there. The interconnected ones, when one goes off, they all go off. So everybody's alerted to the first note. So we're adding that critical time frame we were talking about last time. Fire builds really fast. It's really unexpected, and the more opportunity we have to get out, we can typically utilize that primary escape route we had. We don't have to try to jump out the window because now we understand. So look at your, obviously look at your budget, look at your resources, what's out there, what kind of plan do you think you need? And if you can't afford to do something like interconnected or something like that, reach out to people, places in the community. If you can't afford smoke detectors at all, go to your fire department. We regularly install smoke detectors for people that can't afford them. We'll put in usually up to 5 or 6 if they need it, but ours are just going to be the battery operated ones because we can't rewire your house because bad things will happen if we do that. So, but there's a ton of products out there. Another key thing while we're talking about smoke detectors is they do have a life. CO detectors do have a life. So we buy a new smoke detector, we put it up, we're going to test that every month. When we do our fire escape plans, that's going to be what we trigger that with. That's what we want our muscle memory to say, beep, 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 okay, I need to get out. So we're testing it then. We're changing our batteries every 6 months. Most of your CO detectors are good for 7 years. Most of your smoke detectors are good for 10. When you take your smoke detector off to put batteries in it, look at the back. The back is going to tell you what all of those little annoying beeps are. So when you don't know what's going on with it, if it's beeping twice every 27.5 seconds, it will tell you what that is. So you know if it's a bad unit, if it's end of life, if it's a bad battery. But there's also a date on the back. That's the manufacture date. So 10 years from that date, unless it tells you otherwise, you need to get rid of it and replace it. It's not to say that 20-year-old smoke detectors won't work when we test them, but the sensors in them typically fade and they're not reliable. So just make sure you're staying on top of the dates on those. Sorry.
Is there any questions or concerns up to this point? Talking about the detectors.
We have a question in the chat, John. It's asking, do you recommend one brand over another for interconnected systems?
No, not particularly. All of them are UL approved. And what that means is that there's a third party that tests these devices for their reliability and integrity. And without that stamp of approval, we would not recommend using that in our line of work. So anything that is out there on the market and UL approved, we tend to recommend.
So I don't know if you guys can see this or not. So this little label right here, this is a UL listing, which is Underwriters Laboratory. And they're basically the ones that when you make a product and you say it's going to do this, they're the ones that verify it does what it's supposed to do, like it's supposed to do, and they rate it. When you're buying surge protectors, when you're buying extension cords, when you're buying smoke detectors, look for that UL listing. The UL products are they've been tested and verified.
Wonderful. All right.
All right, so moving on, we're going to talk about just general fire safety. And I myself have small cookers in the home. I've got a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old, and they love to cook. And I cook with them quite a bit, but I'm also confident in their skills on being able to do some of the simple cooking on their own. But the thing that I instilled in them was proper safety in the kitchen. So this depiction here, some of the safety tips that we really like to push is keeping a fire extinguisher in or near the kitchen. And lots of incidents happen in the kitchen, grease fires, leaving something on the stove and forgetting about it, or toaster ovens, stuff burning in there. But anytime you would have an incident of an open flame, it's always good to have an extinguisher nearby. Another thing, and we respond to this quite a bit in the fire service, is never leave your food or stove unattended. So one of the things that happens is you start to warm something up. You're boiling a pot of water. It takes about 12 minutes for that pot of water to start to boil. So within that 12 minutes, you may go into another room and you completely forget that you were boiling water. Next thing you know, the water's gone and the pot is starting to burn and producing smoke. And then you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? So it's just one of those things. Usually what I didn't put it in this PowerPoint, but just a little tip that I do. If I do something like that is I set a timer for 5 minutes. So regardless of what I'm doing, if I have to leave the room or the kitchen at any time and I may or may not have something on the stove, I'll set a timer so it dings. So everyone's like, oh, what was that for? And everyone will go to the kitchen to see and be like, oh yeah. But most of the time we recommend if you're going to be cooking, stay in the kitchen until you're done cooking. Never leave children unattended in the kitchen. And be careful of loose clothing. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. And never put water on a grease fire. All water will do is just displace that grease. It will push it across the surface. And then that's when it spills over onto the counters and other parts of the stove. So here's a fun little table of what can you find wrong in this kitchen. This is an over exaggeration, but it's just a fun little way to think about of certain things in the kitchen that we usually take for granted. All too many times, I go to my mother's house and I'll see the paper towel rack that's depicted over there with the picture with the cat. I'll see the paper towels right next to the stove. And I'm all the time telling her, please, just let's put this by the sink instead. Anytime, just basic safety. It doesn't necessarily have to be fire, but open drawers with knives, chemicals under the sink. What do we have here? We've got the
Water spill, the surge protector.
the water spilled near appliances.
So one thing this is also trying to get out there. There's a lot of these kind of images. If you're on NFPA, if you go to Sparky's Funhouse, if you go to Safe Kids, you can find these kind of images out there all over. And these are super fun and they're easy to sit down with your loved ones and play a game out of it. So we're educating them, we're building them, we're making them knowledgeable of that. They can see it in the picture, and you would be surprised the people that take this and like that's the image they have. And they're like, nope, can't have that, you can't have that, you can't have that, because in that picture that was wrong. So it's working. So this is another tool to put in that toolbox. So we're helping develop. We talked about smoke alarms, using those to trigger that. Don't be afraid of that. This is the same thing. We're building that memory key, and it's little baby steps. But if you sit down and say, okay, today we're going to talk about stuff in the kitchen, and you're just, we can't do this, we can't do this. My son, that's going to go like, whoa, like right in one ear and out the other. But if you make it a game and now you make it a challenge, I found 5 things in here that weren't right. How many can you find? And see what they pick up and pay attention to what they're noticing, because that's the stuff that they're catching on to. So that's going to help you find how they're developing and bringing that information in. If they're seeing all the things that are smoking, then maybe that's their visual cue that's pulling them in. So you've got to find those other visual cues. If they're focusing on the cat, you've just got to find those little things and make that game fun.
All right, so going along with visual aids, there's a very good safety aspect of a 3-foot zone. So you always want to keep a 3-foot zone of safety around a stove. There's a nice little aftermarket mat that they have that you can put around the stove that will give you your 3-foot mark. This one particular picture over here is not that mat. It's just a layover of just showing where the 3-foot mark is. But if you have some type of visual cue to just keep in mind, this is the danger zone when the stove is on, or to just be very cautious when the stove is on in this zone. But that 3-foot mark, that's just a good visual cue of when the stove's on, be very careful in the red area.
We push visual cues with a lot of our people we encounter all the time. I go to businesses constantly and talk to them about space in front of their electrical panels. And I tell them, put some tape on the floor so people know this is 3 feet and they can't put nothing in here. And it will deter 80% of the contact inside that space. You may not get 100, but it's going to be much higher than if you don't have anything in there. Again, Sparky's Fun House, NFPA, they have stuff they've got this measuring stick you can print off, you cut it out, you color it, and then attach it on the floor, and now they know, I can't go inside this ruler. So there's lots of fun ways to do that.
So one of my biggest fears ever since I got in this line of work was actually pot handles when it comes to fire safety in the kitchen. The statistics of especially smaller children pulling the pot handles over and being scalded, but not just that, but anybody of all ages, of just accidents happen. You go to turn around, get something out of a drawer, that pot handle's sticking out slightly, you hit it with your arm, and then it can cause some very serious injuries. So we try to encourage that when you're cooking, to turn the pot handles inward at a safe direction. This one picture to the right with the pot with the handle inward, that's okay if the other burners on the stove are not on. It would be we would recommend that the pot handle go to the other side over the counter space. But if the other burners aren't being used, then that's appropriate. But the one thing to keep in mind is some of these pots, in this particular pot, it's completely metal from the pot to the handle, and metal conducts heat. So if the handle, touch the handle before you handle it. Sorry, that's kind of, but test it before you grab it. If it's hot, use a pot holder. I would just recommend use pot holder every time. It just helps with any type of incident that might occur.
A dry pot holder.
A dry pot holder, yes.
Hey, John, is there oven mitt material that you would recommend more that has the lowest heat transferability?
So they are making oven mitts and pot holders, and you can find these at some of the big box stores now that are Nomex, the same material that we use for our fire hoods. They're actually making oven mitts out of that material. I use it myself. When I saw that there was Nomex oven mitts, I got those for my family, and they absolutely love them. But yeah, that particular material has the lowest heat transfer. So when you're cooking in the home, remember, cook with care, keep any loose items away, and keep a fire extinguisher nearby. And if you look at this, we've in our line of work, we go into a lot of homes for emergencies, and we'll take notice of just the surroundings in the house. And one thing that we do see a lot is we'll see people that store a lot of items near the stove. And if you look in this particular picture, there's a lot of perishable food goods that are contained in combustible cardboard boxes. And that just adds to the fire load if there's ever an accident near the stove. So, we know space is limited, but if you can limit the amount of combustible materials around that stove, we really encourage Um, and just again, keep a fire extinguisher nearby.
So on your fire extinguisher, I would venture to guess that probably 90% of people who have an extinguisher in their kitchen probably has it under their sink. And when it's under their sink, they didn't mount it, they just stuck it under there. Some of them may have taken it out of the box, some didn't. But if you look at this picture and your fire extinguisher was under that sink, try to be mindful of where my hazard is. It's generally your oven and your stove. If you keep one in your laundry room, it's your dryer and your washer. So don't limit yourself, don't keep it so close to those sources that it's not going to be accessible if something happens. If you had an extinguisher buried in the back of your sink because you didn't mount it and it kept getting pushed back, now you have to dig through all the Clorox and everything down there to find it. How long is that going to take you? How much bigger is this fire going to be? Is there grease popping off of this that's getting everywhere? As opposed to if you mounted that extinguisher on the end of this cabinet. And we talked with our people about not, about using those responsibly, or if we had it in just inside another room where it's not where it's not likely to be inaccessible. I would almost rather zip into the other room where I can see and I can breathe and I can focus on getting that extinguisher and go back in here as I would ducking down in that little niche of a corner between the table and the cabinet and trying to get that out. So definitely have an extinguisher, but just be mindful where you put them. Definitely mount them, because if you don't, they're going to get knocked over, they're going to get shuffled, they're not going to be where you expect it when you need it.
So I want to touch on loose clothing. Loose clothing is one of the major hazards in the kitchen and is very dangerous. All too many times, as depicted here, this gentleman is reaching over to turn the burner off, but he's wearing a very loose robe. And depending on what material your clothing is made of, some people nowadays, the synthetic materials that we wear in our clothing are highly flammable. And so when you're cooking in the kitchen, roll up your sleeves, or most aprons, believe it or not, are a very thick fabric that's meant for cooking in the kitchen, not just to keep you clean, but to protect your clothing. But we recommend that you be mindful of any loose fabric near a stove or an oven when you're cooking. And not only just the flammability of the clothing, but chances of getting it snagged, or the pot handle could have easily went into the sleeve of this gentleman's robe and he could have knocked over the pot handle. So be very, very, very mindful.
So on we would be pressed not to throw this in there. What do we do if our clothing catches on fire? This is what we preach to all of our kids when we're doing fire prevention. Many people, most of them know stop, drop, and roll. This has actually been revised. So now it's stop, drop, cover your face, and roll. So we're protecting that, and we're maintaining that little pocket of awesome air that we have without getting flame in our face as we're rolling. I have a lot of success when I'm talking to younger kids. We kind of make it a game, and we talk about stop, drop, rock, and roll. So we're covered up, and then we just get them going to town, and they have fun with it. But make sure you're having that discussion and you're including that other step in there, so they are protecting their face. I would certainly rather have some burns on the back of my hands rather than my face. But just so everybody knows, that's kind of changed.
Okay, so if this YouTube video that we're about to play, it's from the Safe Signals Project. This is this is a program that's out there, and we feel that it's very beneficial. But I'm going to go ahead and let the video play.
And everybody should take a vacation at a rental in case. So actually, if you were using Airbnbs, vacation rentals, take this stuff with you, and make sure you're doing that walk around, your plan, when you get to those places you're not familiar with.
It's a toolkit. It has a video and a workbook and vinyl clings that can be put on windows or appliances.
And for families with special needs children of all ages. In fact, any child, repetition leads to safety.
Will you remember the lessons that you learned? And it's reviewing so that you're prepared for that kind of eventuality when it happens, that I think is crucial.
For Pat Klopper, she nearly lost her autistic son 5 years ago in a house fire. So she teamed up with 2 other women to develop safe signals.
We just wanted to be sure that other families could avoid some of the trauma that our son and his caregivers and the extended family went through.
They chose young adults on the autism spectrum to be the stars of the video. And there was a reason behind that.
We wanted to make sure that the messages in this video were given by young adults for young adults. Messages are always heard much better when they come from someone who's like you.
I was thinking, I was very glad that they'd asked me. I thought it was a very good thing to do, and I certainly made me feel very honored that they chose me for it. Yeah.
Seamus McCord got a leading role. Alyssa Mangan not only had a chance to be in the video, she had a chance to learn.
Just be more cautious around your surroundings. I mean, there are things there I was like, wow, I didn't realize that. It came to a big shock for me. Just hopefully people pay more attention.
For Becky Coffey, a nurse practitioner at the Ohio State University Medical Center burn unit, she thinks it will work.
The majority of burn injuries are preventable.
The kit also comes with clings to put all over the house as daily reminders to safety risks to reinforce the messages.
I'm hoping it saves not just lives, but it saves families.
I really hope it does. Everybody, no matter what your condition is, I hope it saves lives for sure.
Prevent one kitchen burn, prevent one grease burn, one scald burn. This has been a tremendous project.
Marcus Thorpe, NBC4.
Okay, so Ohio State University was one of the partners in that project. So if anyone would like more information, I can get you that information to pass along for the Safe Signals project. And that's, again, just another tool in the toolbox for safety.
We are a public service agency. We are here to serve the public. I'm very grateful for the community we have. I think we have one of the most amazing group of people in this county, the surrounding counties. I think Western North Carolina is just jammed up. We're very blessed. We develop our programs based on the questions that we get. We take that feedback and we want to know what we can do better, what content we need to hit to make it easier for everybody. Yeah, we can do questions, and I'll talk about Community Connect after that. Fires actually happen fairly often. They're not always very big. They might be isolated to the back of a switch, or it might even just be something that melts an extension cord. But other times, if that goes unchecked, or there's other things that we haven't taken steps to mitigate or to get around and kind of fix that before it gets bigger, or if people aren't paying attention or maybe we're asleep, then we allow that fire to get bigger. So we hear about a lot of the bigger fires in the community, certainly businesses because they're shut down, or people's homes when they're displaced, but luckily we've been very fortunate about not having injuries recently, and we're super proud of that. And we think the steps that we're taking right now, things like this, people that want to learn, that want to take that information, the biggest thing that we can do to eliminate fire. Fire is a natural thing. We're never going to get rid of it, but we want to be in a world where people learn how to live with it, how to deal with it safely, understand how it works, you know, how fast it builds, how hot it is. You know, it's not Hollywood. That's the biggest thing I say to a lot of people. You know, it's not like it is on TV. So taking these little steps that you can do, we're going to give you those tidbits that we know because we've been in there and we want to pass that along. So luckily, big fires, we've had very few. You know, but there's little things that happen quite a bit. So thanks for your question. That means they're working like they're supposed to. And so we've got to remember that when we hear those smoke alarms and we hear that beep, 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 we want to go, we want to get out. Even if it's just some burnt toast, you know, we need to make sure we've got that muscle memory of the smoke alarms going off. We need to exit. We let the adults look and see what the situation is. And then you guys have that plan, you have your meeting place. If mom's in there and you come to my house, I burn stuff all the time. I wear my smoke detectors out. But you know, I can tell you it's okay. I haven't burnt the house down. I've just got to open some windows so we can take a step and reevaluate. But when you hear that beep, we want to assume that something's on fire and get out. We don't want to assume that somebody burned a piece of toast and it's going to be okay. So, you know, you say that it's kind of brought up some anxiety, which is, in a sense, it's actually kind of a good thing because we're bringing it to the forefront and we're taking those little things of I can't do this in my house because this is what's going to happen. Those are the things you need to attack directly. There's always a way. So, you know, finding out, you know, if he's anxious about what you know, how safe is our home, you know, make him an integral part of that team. You know, say, okay, today's Saturday, we're going to go on a fire prevention hunt, you know, and wander around your house and say, let's see what we can find. You know, he may see things because he's on a different level that you've never thought about, or you maybe just haven't noticed, and vice versa. You're going to see things, but now he's involved. He feels like he knows kind of what's there. You can explain things to him. You know, this is our fire extinguisher. This is our smoke detector. If you hear this, this is what you do. And then getting that buy-in from them a lot of times will help kind of bring that anxiety down a little bit. But this is when we want to deal with it, when there's nothing going on and we have all this time to manage it. And it's going to be little steps. You know, every person is going to be different as to how they're taking that in and what their anxiety is. If you're not anxious about fire, then you don't know, you don't understand what it is. You know, we're in the fire department and we go in fire all the time. And I get anxious about fire. It's, you know, if you're not prepared for it, those are the cases where bad things happen. You know, most of our residential fires where you hear large loss, you know, the majority of those people didn't have working smoking detectors, or they didn't even have batteries in them, or they didn't have any at all. That's a huge step. Home sprinkler systems are a huge step. There's costs involved, but ultimately it's, you know, I know this is something I want to make my situation safer, and this is going to help that. You find that, you know, granted, some of that stuff can be pricey, but you have a plan and you can make a plan or a plan of action to get there. You know, if you put $5 in the bank to go towards something like that, you know, it's $5 we probably won't miss, but eventually we'll get to that point where we can say, hey, now I got the money. I can put sprinklers in my house and now I'm super, super safe.
Because there was a document that I wanted to share with everybody that was about fire alarms and people with ASD. And it's a document you can find on nfpa.org. That's extremely helpful.
So if you go to nfpa.org, And then right in the middle of the page, there's going to be a tab that says News and Research. NFPA that's the National Fire Protection Agency or Association, not agency. They're basically, they're kind of one of the top benchmarks for protection systems, standards that we go by. Once you go in that News and Research, there's a sub-tab called Detection and Signaling. And they actually have a special one that will pop up that's listed as fire alarms and people with ASD. And it's a literature summary. John's right. It is a really good read. When we were doing a lot of our research on this, we kind of stumbled across it, and we wound up reading the whole thing.
Basically, what the document states is that it's people with ASD and how they react to sounds and lights. So it helps you as the caregiver. It kind of guides you on how to minimize the stressful impact of your loved one when it comes to the alerting devices that are out there. So again, I can't stress enough. It's a good read. I would suggest everyone that's attending this online class to download it and just read it.
There's a ton of information out there regarding people on the spectrum because there's different challenges that are there. And that's what a lot of this was about. We want to eliminate that. I can't do it because of this. There's always a way. That's my challenge. I want to take I can't use smoke alarms because this is what's going to happen. Well, we just need to make the process work for that person. So if you're struggling, if you're having problems with it, touch base with us. If you're not in the city, touch base with your local fire department and tell them, here's what I have. If they don't know, there was a lot of this I didn't know before I started kind of researching it, and I got so much information that I was just super, super excited about, because I know it's going to make our program so much better, because it is little things that's not just focused necessarily for people on the spectrum, but they're challenges that affect all kinds of people. And I get excited about that. I want to take those things where we're saying, that won't work for me, and let's make it work. Let's find that way.
And anybody through SGH is also welcome to reach out to me as well. If you're like, I don't know if they'll understand because they might have a lot else to do because it's the fire department, and you're thinking, oh, XYZ is not going to work for me. You're welcome to reach out to me as well through SGH, and I will do my best to help meld the two. I will probably get the fire department involved and be like, where do you see we could have improvements, but this is the concern. So if you're afraid to reach out because you think they're too busy or anything like that, you're welcome to reach out to me as well, and I will help to find a solution that works for your family.
Think of all those resources that are out there. Again, I talk about the fire department because that's what I'm used to. Because we're used to people coming, and even just now, I go to those people that know what's going on, and we want to help. I'll help her help you if you feel like you're not kind of at a point to talk to us. There's language that she may understand that I'm not familiar with, or certain problems, but we're all one big team, and ultimately we want to solve that goal. So something I want to kind of hit on real quick, because I know we're getting close on time, and I'm trying really hard not to run it over so much like I did last time. Were you good?
Yes.
Okay. The number one, if you have questions on anything we covered, if you want copies of this PowerPoint, if you want any information I have, reach out to me, to my department, to Victoria. We can all kind of dig in there. We'll get you what you need. We'll work with you. We'll see what your plan is, where the struggles are. But certainly we can't help if we don't know. So the second thing, last time we met, we talked quite a bit on some different programs that were out there that we can use to get that specific information for your business or your residents and the people that live there out to first responders. So we talked about calling dispatch and leaving little notes. But we mentioned briefly we were working on a program called Community Connect through First Due. And we've been very diligent on this. And we're super excited that we're right now, probably the first of next week, we're doing a beta focus group launch for some businesses and individuals here in the city, try to work the bugs out. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, no bugs are in there. And my goal is the 1st of April. I'm tempted to go the 2nd of April just so it doesn't bite me. But the 1st of April, we're hoping to launch this program live and get it out to the community. That information, we're going to blast it on, hopefully we can get with some of the press and media stuff and just get that information out, but it will be on the city website, on our Facebook page, our Instagram. We're going to have that all out there. And it is as simple as clicking a link, creating a profile, and putting in there what you're comfortable with. This is bank code encryption software. So just because you put, I have a door code at my house and it's 1234, your neighbor can't log into your program, and see that. Somebody can't jump and duplicate your address and take your information. But you now have that spot where you can say, I have 3 dogs and this is where they're at. This is what kind of dogs they are. I have kids with special needs. I have a disabled, parent that lives in the home and their bedroom's on the 2nd floor in the back corner. When we get a call, this software sends us information and it pulls information for your address. And it actually does this now because we get that information from GIS or the surveyor's office. And it tells us we're going to this 2-story residential house. Here's how big it is. It's got a basement. And that's really kind of all I know. But we're getting that little bit of information. That's coming straight to our responders. We're not relying on something getting sent to dispatch or that you are able to talk on the phone. Maybe something's happened and you're not able to get that information across. So now I get it straight on my phone that I know there's a disabled person in the top of this building. So right from the get-go, before I leave the station, I can make a plan that we're possibly doing a rescue and it's on the 2nd floor and it's not going to be a typical person who's going to come climbing down the ladder with me. We're going to have to work on that. All of that information is in there. First Due is awesome. If you don't want to use First Due, there's no cost. The city pays for the subscription. But if you don't want to use First Due, the Community Connect, there are still things so the county is signed up for Smart 911. You can do a lot of that same information and it gets relayed to a dispatcher who then turns around and gives it to us. So that's what I like about First Due is we're eliminating that little step of lost in translation or overlooked. But super excited. I will let let them know when we get it launched, and maybe you guys can help us kind of disseminate the word. My goal is that everybody is as excited as me and wants to jump on board. And now we're, if something happens, goodness, God forbid, we're we're more prepared to do a better job. So super excited about first two.
Is that program only for city residents or?
So right now, it's for people that are in the city. We're working on getting some of our mutual aid departments kind of logged in and joining in on that. There's a whole bigger picture. The county was looking at this program at one point. It's not exactly cheap, and they're trying to find the best ways to spend people's tax dollars. And we were kind of the guinea pig for the program, rolling it out. So we can take all our success stories, get it to the county departments, which I'm a member of a county department too. So I see both sides of it. But hopefully we can broadcast that out, because there are so many benefits with it. But you know, right now, the residents that are living in the city, they're the ones that are gonna pick that up right off the bat.
Thank you guys all for joining. I really appreciate it. I have taken so much away from this that I am applying to my daily life. And if there's any way that I can help facilitate this to your families, please let us know. Like, please let us know.